everyone. Welcome back to Rabbi's Reflection. I'm glad that you're joining with us today. We'll be continuing in our study of My Grandfather's Blessings by Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen, and today reading the story, Knowing Life. Stay with us as we read through the story and then offer some reflections. One of the things that I have learned since my medical training is that it is possible to study life for many years without knowing life at all. Often things happen that science can't explain. Many very important things cannot be measured, but only observed, witnessed, and ultimately trusted. Life may not be limited by the facts. Science defines life in its own way, but perhaps life is larger than science. A friend of mine, director of research at a nonprofit institute, had become interested in spontaneous remission of cancer. As his interest became more widely known, people would call or write him to tell him their stories of unexplained recovery from serious illness. One of these was a young man who claimed to have had a spontaneous healing from a dire form of bone cancer called osteogenic sarcoma. He had been diagnosed many years ago as a college student. Noticing a hard lump in his right thigh, he had gone to see a doctor. A biopsy had confirmed the doctor's suspicion of cancer, and he and his parents had been called to a meeting. Sadly, the doctor told them of his findings and strongly recommended that he have his right leg amputated at the hip. He was 19 years old. Despite the urging of several doctors and his parents, he had refused the surgery and had gone home to his parents' farm without any treatment to live out his life. Nothing further had been done for him except that the pastor of his church had asked those people who were so moved to pray for him at 7 o'clock every night. People prayed for 2 years. Over time, the mass in his thigh had simply grown smaller and finally disappeared. My friend was captivated by the story. Through his work, he had developed a researcher's healthy skepticism, but the man seemed so genuine and matter-of-fact that he could not get the story out of his mind. Finally, he called to ask a favor. Would I mind trying to track down the doctor who had made the original diagnosis and see if he would confirm this story or if he had kept medical records or a biopsy report? How long has it been? I asked. 20 years, said my friend ruefully. I started to express my doubts, but my friend interrupted. Please try, he said. And so I did. It turned out to be easy. The doctor, a relatively young man at the time he treated this patient, was listed in his state's medical association and still in practice. Encouraged, I called and got him on the phone. After the usual introductions, I told him that I was calling to see if he had kept the medical records on a former patient. It was long ago that I doubted he would remember, and then I told him the man's name. His response was immediate. Of course I remember him, he said with feeling. I've thought of him many times over the years. What a senseless tragedy. Are you calling on behalf of the family? No, I replied, and told him that the man was still alive. Thank God, he said. Where did he have his surgery? He didn't have surgery, I replied. There was a pause. When he spoke again, I could detect a change in his voice. Then what happened? He asked. So I told him the story as it had been told to me. There was a long silence, and then, without another word, he hung up the phone. I called him several times afterward, but he never returned my calls. Most of us encounter a great deal more mystery than we are willing to experience. Sometimes knowing life requires us to suspend disbelief, to recognize that all our hard-won knowledge may only be provisional, and the world may be quite different than we believe it to be. This can be very stressful, even frightening. But if we are not willing to wonder, we may have to hang up the phone on life. I imagine this week might have been a bit polarizing, the story, for some of us. I think for some of us, the power of prayer is one that we firmly believe in. And whether or not we are skeptical with the story, we can overcome that with our belief, our fervent belief that prayer is what can solve the problems. And there might be others who are more skeptical of the story, who wrinkle their nose at the story, who don't truly believe what happened, like the doctor. And I think it's okay to feel both. I think it's okay to if you feel one or the other, but that you're moved by the story in some way, that you think of the story as a way to explore the complicated and unexplainable, the frustrating nature of the world that we live in. We live in a world that is a mystery. Yes, we, thank God, have made tremendous strides in our evolution and in our scientific exploration, in understanding the world. Many of us feel that very strongly in the last few years. And yet, there's a sense that there are things beyond our grasp, that we can just simply, as Dr. Remen says, witness or just simply trust that this world works in the ways that it does. Can life be larger than science? It's a little hard of a question to answer nowadays. But we take our story of the young man, the college student who had bone cancer, and he didn't want to go ahead and have his leg amputated. And I'll be honest, if I was him, I would have probably chosen to have my leg amputated, but he doesn't. And miraculously, that he goes into remission. It's an unexplained recovery from illness. I don't know exactly what to do with this story. I think I too sit in a place of discomfort. I trust Dr. Remen. I've been reading her stories now, and we've been reflecting on them for a while now. And so I don't know what to make of it. There are moments in my life that I've experienced or that I see in others that are unexplainable. Do I personally know about a unexplained kind of recovery from illness? I don't. I don't have that personal experience. Have I heard stories about it? Yes, I have. But I think regardless of what we might feel as skepticism for some of us, I think what she's asking us today is to try and embrace, as hard as it is to embrace something vulnerable, but to embrace the mystery, that there is more mystery to our lives, as she says, than we are willing to experience. And I think that is definitely true. Our daily existence, the things that we come into contact every single day and experience, are tremendous mysteries. And if we can open up ourselves to that mystery, to not necessarily knowing everything, to realizing that whatever world outlook that we have on the world might just be provisional, as she says, then we will have taken a step further into becoming a more sensitive person. All right. Well, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.